Hey, what's up?
Hey,
I miss you.
wow, we were just in the same room together like 5 minutes, 5 seconds ago.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel, tuning into this podcast, tuning into this series. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, here with my beautiful wife from Turkey. Say hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Akti. Nice to meet y'all.
This is episode 12 of SIMAK Movie Reviews, where we deep dive into these movies, chop it up about the themes, the cast, the storylines, the plots. We keep it real. We trash it if it's bad, and we praise it if it's good. So let's get into this movie. It's Beast
Mm.
of the Southern Wild. Beast of the Southern Wild. Never heard of this movie before. How did you find this movie, Acting?
Yeah, I was just on Letterboxd looking at different people's lists, and there was this list with like the greatest, black actors who should have got like an Oscar or something like that. And yeah, I clicked on this, and I was like, okay, maybe we can watch it.
Yep, because Dwight Henry, the actor for what's his name, Daddy, the father in this movie.
Daddy.
What's his name?
Yeah, Wink in the movie.
Wink. Yeah, Wink, the father in this movie, definitely deserved an Oscar. I'm standing on it.
Him
But I
and also
really,
like the little girl, Hush Puppy.
yeah, yeah, maybe.
Wow.
But anyway, what was your impression after watching the movie? Like overall, how did you feel about it?
I felt like there were a lot of themes that they were like trying to shine through, like global warming, poverty, capitalism, technological advancements. I don't know, community. Like there was just like so many like real themes. Honestly, I thought this was like an environmentalist movie, sort of like it is, but there, it was like it's still much more than that. So I don't know. I enjoyed it overall. Just like after we finished watching it, I was like, just thinking about what everything meant basically, because it is also kind of like a, it's not like a normal drama movie.
Hmm. Right. I think this movie, I really enjoyed watching it, and it brought me back home because being from Louisiana, it's very rare to see stories about Louisiana that don't have to do with like, racism or like, I don't know, just the typical stuff that Louisiana is sort of famous for. And there are a lot of different themes in this movie, but I think the biggest theme is like living at the edge of the world
Mm.
during the end of the
Yeah.
world, because that's sort of what it feels like when you live in southern Louisiana. So a little background on me, like I stayed in New Orleans for like 4 years, and in that culture, everybody just sort of makes jokes casually, like, "Oh, New Orleans is going to be underwater in a few years. We're living in Atlantis," and people constantly have this, thought in the back of their mind that everything could be gone tomorrow because we saw what happened with Katrina
Mm.
and other things that have happened in relation to the environment
Mm.
there. And generally, I thought all the acting was great.
Yeah.
The story was cool. It was inspirational, scary, funny, sad, a lot of different emotions that you feel watching this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, like, yeah, like sense of survival. You just feel it throughout the movie.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, just jumping into it, the story is real simple. Like you could tell the whole story in one sentence. There's a group of people who live in southern Louisiana in a city called the Bathtub, and they are deep, deep, deep in southern Louisiana, like as in right on the coast. And basically, they live in this community that's behind a levee, where the rest of the people in Louisiana live on the other side, where they're protected from the water. But the people in the bathtub live, right next to the water, and they're seeing the changes that are happening. And they live off of the land. They fish every day. They raise their own chickens and cows and pigs and stuff like that. There's this little girl who lives with her father. Her mother died. They live in like this rundown
We
shack.
don't know her
The
mother
whole
died because he says she swam away. So we
Oh
don't
yeah,
know if she
sorry,
left them or she died. Like we really don't know.
sorry, because she does appear later in the movie. So you're right. I apologize for that. Yeah, she didn't die, but basically it's this little girl left with her father. Her father's, kind of a how can I say
A
this? He
tough
he doesn't
cookie.
have. He's a tough cookie. He's a hard nut to crack. He's a bit of a hard ass. Yeah, he's a bit of an eccentric, independent man,
Hmm.
and basically there's a big storm that comes. It floods the whole town. Then they have to survive, and the father also has a heart condition, so he's about to die at any moment, and the girl will be left alone with no family. But he is constantly trying to make her stronger, and a survivalist and stuff like that. They eventually get picked up by the police, who take them to the city in some like refugee camp. But then they escape and go back down to the town with other people. And yeah, that's it. That's a movie. That's a movie.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Yeah. But I mean, it
But
is kind of like a, I guess, I don't know if you can say it a slow burn, but there are like a lot of scenes where you just like see the roughness of the environment, but also like some happy moments you see with the people, like when they're eating together and stuff like that. And
yeah,
yeah, also like there are scenes where like you sort of see like these oxes. Are they called oxes? Like wild boars, sort of like a, I don't know, Simon.
I'm
Oh,
listening to you.
sort of like a mythical creature type of thing that is, I guess, was hinting at like climate change, I guess, but also like this world of a child, because the whole movie is told from like the child's perspective, and she's supposed to be like 6 years old in this movie. And yeah, basically like we enter into the world of this like kid who is living with his father in like the harshest conditions that you can imagine. And yeah, we kind of see like her imagination, and I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I want to say, like, coming from Louisiana, the way that those houses looked and the way those people were living, that was like a little bit dialed up, but not too far away from the truth. Because if you go around Louisiana, you'll see poverty like you've never imagined. And there are people living like close to the water with the houses on sticks. They live off of the land and stuff like that. It's actually like a really good portrayal of that sort of thing too. And I kind of knew the movie was in Louisiana as soon as I saw those gas power
Mm.
plants. Like all through southern Louisiana, there's a lot of like offshore drilling that happens, and there's also a lot of like natural gas refinement in Louisiana. So we have these plants all through the state, and they pump out like pollution all in the air. And I said, oh wow, okay, they're really showing the real here. And that's one of the first scenes you see after the little girl is narrating about her life living in the bathtub, and you see her poor, dilapidated house, and it looks like, oh, this movie's going to be sad. Oh, poor little black girl growing up in poverty. And then they show the rest of the community in the bathtub, and they have holidays all the time. It's white and black people who are all poor, but they all live together somewhat in harmony and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Or at least as far as we see in the movie, there's like this movie is free of like racism or any discussion about race, but it's sort of like the undertone because the majority of the people in the bathtub, that we see are like black or mixed and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But there are a lot of poor white folks too, and that sort of thing. And
Yeah, it kind of feels like
yeah,
everyone knows each other.
everyone knows each other. There's really like only like 10 families that live there and a bunch of little kids. And this is apparently a real thing because the director and co-writer of this movie, Ben Zitler, something like
Yeah.
that, moved to New Orleans from New York, and he said that he heard about these communities in southern Louisiana that were living in the flood zone,
Mhm.
and they were going to be the first ones to be impacted by climate change. And shout out to him for making a movie that's so explicit about environmental racism and how the changing of the climate is going to affect poor people, black people, brown people all over the world.
Mhm.
Because this is something that people don't really take seriously. We think that's just going to be somewhere else,
Yeah.
but it's going to happen in America too, and it's going to be a tragedy
Yeah,
when it does
yeah.
happen.
And also like how they casted the actors is like interesting because in this movie like there's no big actors, no big names. And apparently like the girl who played it, they found
Say
her.
her name. Say her name.
Okay, I will. Quvenzhané?
No,
No?
Quvenzhané.
Quvenzhané. Okay, sorry. My French is not good.
Your black is
Oh,
good.
sorry. Wow. I've never heard this name. I mean, it's an interesting name. Quvenzhané. Is that correct?
Yes.
So yeah, Quvenzhané, they found her, like she's from Louisiana, right? And also the guy who plays Wink, Dwight Henry, he's like I read a little bit of his story. He's like this baker in New Orleans, and yeah, they went up to him, and he's like so busy baking, and they actually like went to see him during the night because he was so busy, and they told him like, hey, we have this like kind of low budget movie and we want you to like star in it. And he said like no, because he has a wife and 5 kids. So he was like, I'm just trying to take care of my family, like I don't want to get involved in Hollywood and all that. And then I guess they somehow like convinced him to do it, which is like really good because his acting, like we can see his fatherhood in his acting, and I think that was
Uh-huh.
like very original as well.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen a movie with more authentic New Orleans, Southern Louisiana accents than this one. And it really makes you feel like you're in that place.
Mm.
So, going back to the story, the people in the bathtub live on the other side of the levee that protects the rest of Louisiana from the flood. And, the levee sort of like symbolizes a lot, at least for like Louisiana, because where I grew up, we had a levee right down the street next to our river. And whenever it would rain heavy, our river would almost flood. And it's sort of like that one barrier that keeps us all from just living underwater. And there have been other times in history in Louisiana where the levees broke, and some say the levees broke intentionally. There was a mass flood in the early 20th century in Louisiana, in New Orleans, where the whites on the other side of segregated New Orleans broke open the levees because they didn't want their properties to flood, and hundreds of thousands of black people were forced to evacuate, lose their homes, and some even died.
Mm.
And so, talking about levees and showing that distinction at the beginning scene when Wink and Hush Puppy, his daughter, go to the levees and look at the other side, it really brought that to mind for me when I was looking at the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you thought anything particularly about that
I
scene.
mean, like what in the movie where that scene is like they're looking at all these like sort of factories, I guess, or just like concrete stuff. I don't know. It reminded me of like how, and the dad says like, doesn't it look ugly there? Like bathtub is the most beautiful place on earth, or something like that. And
Mhm.
yeah, like it reminded me of that, like how sort of ugly things look, but those are the things like kind of makes the world go round for like us regular people, I guess. Like I don't know,
Right.
petroleum and factories and all sorts of stuff that we eat at home or use at home, they're created in like those really ugly like concrete jungles
Mhm.
basically. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right. That opening scene was like very classical, like when we think about like novels, like for example, A Tale of Two Cities, right? And when we have one side like this and the other side like this, or basically like any movie where we talk about like a segregated past, you would have the black side of the city and the white side of the city. And when they show those two distinctions, it's meant to show you like the difference in living standards and the dichotomy between the two. And I think Wink as a character is supposed to represent the American ideal of total liberation, total freedom, and total
Hmm.
independence. Because Wink is a man who is entirely self-reliant and loves his home and loves nature and loves being in control of nature. And this is a very, very, how can I say, like just a like the archetype of the true American identity and character is embodied in Wink. And when he rejects civilization, when he looks at the power plants and says that's the ugliest place on earth, it feels like he's rejecting all the things that hold us down and keep us shackled and chained, right? And Wink wants to live truly free, and that's just what I thought about that
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, definitely.
And moving on, so when the flood is about to happen, they get the warning. People in the town start running through the streets. The flood is coming. The flood is coming, as if they don't have cell phones, or as if they don't have computers, or as if they didn't get the weather report. Because everybody in this town loves to drink. They drinking all the time, so they're close to civilization. They got cars, they got roads. They need to stop acting like they're living off the Grand Plain, like there's some Native American tribe who uses smoke signals. Now they knew the storm was coming.
Yeah, I mean, like it's like they probably like go downtown to like buy beer and stuff, or like whenever they need something. But also they're pretty like self reliant as well. And I don't think like maybe yeah, like maybe they had cell phones, but I don't think they were like on Instagram and stuff like that. They were sort of like
Man.
just making it on their own. And when they needed like that extra something, because they had boats,
Mhm.
so obviously they needed like motors or I don't know something like gas or something. So yeah, obviously they went to the city and got it, I guess, or.
Man, don't try to act like you live like the Amish or you live like the Bedouins in Saudi Arabia when you have to go to Walmart and pick up plastic bags and bottles of Beefeater's gin. Stop it.
Okay.
Stop it. That's all I got to say.
Okay.
But before that, before the storm comes, there's that scene where the only schooling that they have apparently is going to this like witch lady, this mulatto witch lady. So Hush Puppy goes to hang out with this older woman who like scares the shit out of everybody because she's like everything's made of meat. She shows like a tray full of like seafood and like crabs and like cross shrimp and different stuff like that. And she says everything's made of meat. You's made of meat, everything, and we gonna eat meat. And I'm like, oh, is this lady trying to teach them about cannibalism? What is this lady talking about? And then she puts up her like musty, sweaty thigh and shows a tattoo and says like, long, long time ago, there were these things called the Aruxins or Roxins or something like that. Ancient animals that would eat up the babies of the cave people right in front of the cavemen and the cave ladies. And these monsters didn't care nothing because all they wanted was meat and something like that. And I was like, ugh, this is the worst school ever. This is why Louisiana public education is the worst.
Wow.
It's absolutely bad. But then they go to the picture. There's a picture on the wall in the school of the South Pole, and then the camera switches to like an image of the South Pole and some like frozen beast in ice. And yeah, I don't know what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, it felt like to me like they kind of like had their own like maybe mythology or something like that. I don't know. Obviously, yeah, like the things that she was saying was kind of hinting at like climate change, because she was saying like oh, because of like all this change happening in the world, like the poles are gonna melt and it's gonna flood here, and the creatures are gonna come and we're gonna be just meat to them or something like that. So it felt like she was kind of describing like doomsday, but in a way that like I don't know, kind of like story way for like kids or something.
Yeah. I mean, in Louisiana, we have a lot of myths and like not ancient tales, but like old wives' tales and stories that are passed down from generations. So yeah, it felt like one of those stories that she was telling and stuff like that. That's something that their community had or that region had or something. And then, yeah, I did get it instantly that it was about like climate change. And I was thinking, the entire time, why do they choose to live in this area that they know that she even says it one day, this whole place is going to be underwater,
Mhm.
right? And I had to say, why are they doing this? And then it clicked in my mind, like, that's just the Louisiana way. That's just the culture. That's just a part of the
Yeah.
environment. You always know permanently that your life, everything you have can be washed away. And in fact, it will be washed away. We know it will happen. So we might as well just live for the day, party, drink, not care about tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that is the reason. Like they sort of like accept it, and she was also like teaching the children so that they accept it and kind of cope with this idea that something like this is going to happen. So like you just know,
Mhm.
like, and the way that she was saying, I don't think like the kids were that like scared or something, because yeah, they probably seen like worse things. I don't know, animals die and stuff like that, or
Right.
people
But I
die.
want to say that
So
there's
yeah.
probably a metaphor in the idea that they are frozen in time. The people in the bathtub, this small community, are frozen in time because their lifestyle has not changed, possibly for generations. And that's also the same as this monster that's been kept in ice. But now times are changing, and what was once frozen in time will now freeze, and what was once frozen in time is now unfreezing, and what was now in time will freeze. And this has to end. And that's just a part of a bigger cycle of life. So I'm thinking, there's probably some metaphor in there if you really think about it. I don't know though.
No, yeah, definitely. And yeah, and I don't know, the more that I think about it and read about like this whole story, I do also agree with you in a sense that like those wild boars were kind of like the Hush Puppy's creation of like
Hmm.
just, her imagining like maybe I don't know, like maybe just making this whole very like, doomsday type of feeling to make it a little bit more interesting and better in her kid's mind.
Hmm.
She was like, "Oh, the
Hmm.
world's gonna end, like, and these like creatures are gonna come and stuff like that." You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we don't
Yeah,
really know
I
like if
could.
those things are real when they show us in the movie.
Right, because throughout the movie, these monsters, these giants, they look like giant wild boars appear, and there is a scene at the end of the movie where the main character is face to face with the wild monsters, and you could debate: are they real or are they fake? Because she's looking at them, but we never see the other people looking at them, and there's never that shot that confirms that other people identify these
Hmm.
creatures. But I would say that they're not real. They are once again metaphors for the impending doom of nature that is going to befall man. And I also think that she probably thought of this as well. Like we in the bathtub are frozen in time, And these monsters that are breaking out, that are coming towards us, are things that have always existed, but they are being unfrozen in
Yeah.
time. And so now we will freeze. Because throughout the movie, when things really get hard in the bathtub, when the flood comes and the whole town is underwater, Hush Puppy says, "Do you want to leave the bathtub?" She's getting tired of living in the bathtub. She wants to go away and stuff like that. And obviously, maybe that's what her mom was thinking too, because her mom left the bathtub and went somewhere else. So, I'm thinking maybe that's how she was rationalizing it, through those monsters.
Yeah, maybe.
So moving on, yeah, the storm finally comes. Well, before the storm comes, there's an interesting scene. So Hush Puppy comes home and her father is not there, and she's very scared because, of course, she's like 9 years old or something like that. She's a
6.
baby. Six. She's 6 years old in the movie, and nobody's there to take care of her. And actually, her and her father live in different houses, and they didn't really build on that in the movie, but it sort of makes sense when you think about the movie. They live in different houses, and her father only calls her when it's feeding time. So he rings a bell after he's cooked something, and then she comes from her house that's right across from his house to come get the food, but then she has to live on her own for the rest of the time and stuff like that. So one time she comes home to her house and nobody's there. Her father's not there because sometimes her father cooks for her and takes care of her and stuff like that. But she's scared. So then she starts cooking cat food. She starts cooking cat food mixed with like mucus in a can.
It looks really bad.
It looked horrible. It looked really bad. And she starts reminiscing about her mother. And I guess her mother used to wear like a 23 Michael Jordan jersey because she's talking to the jersey and imagining her mother's voice while she's in the kitchen cooking cat food stew. What did you think of that scene?
Yeah, it was like, once again, like this child creating this sort of reality. Because when you're a child, like everything is kind of mixed up. Like you believe in Santa, but then like also your parents tell you that there are starving kids and stuff like that. So you kind of like make sense of it all in your own head. And like imagining a kid who has actually like never been with her mother and grew up with his father. Her mother is sort of like also like this very perfect, very pretty like woman who speaks so softly and cooks the best food and stuff like that. So yeah, that was just like a sort of like a cute moment that even like when she's abandoned and living in like an insanely impoverished place, she can like find her little imaginary things and be happy with it, I guess.
Yeah, I think possibly that her mother left because she didn't want to stay in the
Yeah.
bathtub, and Wink was very obsessed with it, and also she left because Wink didn't know how to clean a damn house. I mean, the kitchen was filled up with trash to the brim. The kitchen looked like Mister's house when Celie first arrived. The whole house was trash. The whole house was just garbage on top of garbage,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how they lived like that.
Yeah, it's just
I didn't
like
know.
I don't know. It looked like a hoarder's house, like all these bits and stuff that he just collected, but they're just really like trash.
Yeah, it's really bad, really, really bad. And yeah, she hears that her father is home while she's cooking the cat food stew, and she runs outside to meet him. But he's wearing a hospital gown with a bracelet, so that lets us know he has some health problems, and he probably won't be able to live on much longer. I guess eating cat food and living in a shack is not conducive to your health. But but Hush Puppy is like, "Daddy, Daddy, where have you been? I missed you," and stuff like that. And then he like yells at her to go away, and so then she goes back to the house, and Daddy starts ringing the bell saying it's feeding time, and she's upset.
Well,
So
actually,
she
then like he sort of like slaps her, no? Or was that later?
that was
Okay,
later.
sorry. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
ruined the
Anyway,
moment.
so she goes back to her house and turns up the heat on the food and causes a fire. By the way, she started the fire for her food with a flamethrower. Jesus Christ! Well, how were they? This is thugged out. They were living extremely thugged out in southern bathtub Louisiana.
No lighters, just flame torches.
Just flame torches. That was one of the
Imagine
wildest.
lighting your cigarette. You lose your
I know,
eyebrows.
right? That's why nobody smoked. If we think about it, I didn't see a single person smoke in this movie, and you would think this would be a narcotics heaven.
Yeah.
You would think carcinogens would be everywhere in everybody's lungs, but no. Anyway, she goes back to her house. She's mad at her father, so she turns up the heat and sets up the fire, and then goes and hides under her cardboard box, right?
Yeah.
And her father comes back into the house and is like, "What's going on? Where are you, Hush Puppy? Where you at, girl?" So, what do you think of that scene?
That was very cute. Again, like obviously it wasn't cute because I thought she was gonna die or something. uh yeah, and like inside the cardboard she's drawing like these drawings of her being sad and like her maybe her mom or maybe herself, and she's like, people are going to remember me, scientists will like study me long after I'm gone. And it's like, it's basically, it feels like cave drawings that she's doing on her cardboard, like
Hmm.
how first people did, and how we study the first cave drawings today, and it feels like she's just trying to like imitate them or something.
Hmm.
And again, it's like very childish. She thinks the fire is not going to harm her in a cardboard box, because like if you don't see the danger then there's no danger. That's kind of like also a child's way of thinking. So yeah, that was interesting.
I thought that scene was very, very important, and also a big part of the theme of the movie is the idea that we can protect ourselves from nature by doing very little, right? And that sort of like goes again to these people choosing to live in an area where the hurricanes are going to come. It's like hiding from a fire in a cardboard
Mm,
box, and I thought it was a big metaphor for that.
mm.
And also, this theme in this movie is like for people who believe that we should reject society, reject civilization, and be primitivist, we should, reject capitalism and just go live in the woods or something. This movie is probably for them because it's all about that. This idea that we can live amongst nature and stuff like that. And the cave drawings, like you said, is sort of like the theme of this movie. That man and nature will be reunited once again, and
Yeah.
we will live in harmony, and we will live like how we did in the past, where our moments were barely remembered. Like there were millions of humans who lived before the first book was written, right? We don't know any of their stories, but we just see a few cave drawings and stuff like that because they were probably more focused on just staying alive
Hmm.
and farming or capturing animals and stuff like that. So it seems like, how can I say this? Hush Puppy is trying to not consciously trying to do that, but she symbolizes that ideal of returning to nature in caveman status.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because it's like, we can kind of know like she knows scientists exist, or I don't know, like technology exists or something like that. Maybe like from what she heard. But it's like, yeah, maybe she's like really proud and content with like just being out in nature and being in the bathtub. She believes like so dearly that this place is really the most beautiful place on earth and stuff like that. So she's kind of like holding on to that idea that, bathtub is a special place and I will be like famous as one of those people who just like was free and lived on their own with nature, I guess. I don't know. Simon, you're muted.
Yeah, can you hear
Yeah.
me? All right, so moving on from that scene, her and her father finally like reunite because she like runs out of the house. He chases after her while the house is burning down. They get into a big fight. She yells at him that she hates him because one time he was mean to her, even though he has been feeding and taking care of this girl all by himself. Anyway, uh, anyway, he slaps her because she yelled that she hates him because that's what any black parent would do. So then she hits him on the chest because, of course, that's what black children do. Absolutely not. I don't. I've never heard of somebody telling their parents, a black person saying, "I will kill you, dad," or "I hate you, dad," and not mean it. Number one, but maybe she did because Hush Puppy hits her father on the chest, and because this man has a weak ass heart because he's frail body like that.
Wow.
Now, let me not say that about Wink because he's scary. He's scary. He's
Yeah.
literally one of the scariest man's men I've seen on screen. I feel like he could like fight like I don't know John Wayne. He could fight the Terminator. Wink could fight the Tyrannosaurus Rex in Jurassic Park and come out on top. He gonna eat the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Wow. Probably.
Anyway, Wink gets hit in the heart. He falls down and passes out. And Quvenzhané runs away.
Okay, just flaunt your Creole African American vocabulary.
So Hush Puppy runs away when her father like almost dies, and she runs into the town and stuff like that. And she goes to the Creole witch lady, Creole Lady Marmalade, and asks for medicine. And she gives him like a jar full of like cat piss and like roots. And when she comes back, her father is gone, and so she's very sad. And what happens after that?
Yeah, she hides the jar and then like I don't know, I guess she just like kind of makes up with her father. And then after that it's like the
No,
storm coming.
well, no. Before that, her father is like walking through town, like talking to people, like we ain't gonna leave the bathtub. We ain't gonna leave now. And some people are like, yeah, I'm gonna leave after I finish this beer, and then they don't leave.
Yeah.
And other people are like packing up their cars and driving out of town and stuff like that. So the bathtub only has like a few people that remain. And Hush Puppy and her father go back to his house, and he's like telling her to like sit in a suitcase with some air floaties on her arm, and if the water comes in, they're gonna swim to the top, bust through the ceiling. And Hush Puppy is still upset at her father, so she's staring at him while he's trying to sleep. He can't sleep, so then he goes outside with his shotgun and tries shooting at the clouds,
Trying to kill the storm.
trying to kill the storm while it's raining and thundering, and the house starts shaking, and it really feels like the end of the world. And
Yeah.
I feel like they did a good job at that scene on showing like how powerful those storms are in southern
Yeah, like in
Louisiana.
that scene they were showing like they were showing the storm and the dad like shooting at the sky and then all the sounds of the storm, but then they were like cutting into the ice caps just like melting and breaking. And we always like see those images but we actually like never hear them. And like just
Mm,
imagine at that scene I was imagining like how much of a big like commotion that would make, just like this
mm,
huge ice block just dropping into the ocean, like the
mm.
sound or the shake or something like that. Probably it's like an
Right,
earthquake. So it
right,
was,
right.
I feel like they were trying to tell, like, this, when it's something like this happening, and if you're there, it's like very, very frightening. And maybe then only you can understand the urgency of this. I don't know.
Right, the urgency of the problem. But I think also you learn to live and deal with the fear because this obviously wasn't Wink's first storm.
Hmm.
He knew he could go outside at least and stand outside for a few minutes and make a scene by shooting his gun in the air.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, once again, this movie is another movie about man versus nature. But in this movie, man is not really fighting against nature. He's sort of fighting against a world that tells him not to live in nature,
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so for all the anarchists, primitivists out there, this is your movie. If you want to see a movie that makes you feel good about your horrible life choices, about not wearing deodorant, sleeping in blue jeans, living in a shack in Oregon, you're gonna love this.
Yeah.
You're gonna love
Yeah.
it.
And also
All
like
right.
every time something sort of like bad happens, like the storm or his illness or whatever, he's always like trying to teach Hush Puppy how to survive without him, I feel like. Because yeah, that's because in those type of conditions, and also when you're at the mercy of nature, you don't really have another choice, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
poverty, whether it's like just rough conditions, whether it's natural conditions, you just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of have to survive one way or another. So like he's always like, telling her, don't be afraid, our family is never afraid, we're the men, and things like that.
Right. Now I got to say this though, because we didn't see any real moments of tenderness between Hush Puppy and her father until the end of the movie.
Hmm.
I thought that there was actually some bitterness from on the father's end towards his daughter. So his daughter probably like looks up to him, but he sort of like resented her or hated her because maybe she was the reason that her mother ran away, as in the woman he loves, he doesn't have her, and then he got left with a baby, or as they say in New Orleans, baby. So yeah, that's what I felt a
Mm,
little bit because throughout the movie he's like really tough on her. Like he's like screaming at her, telling there's no crying, stop all that crying, stop staring at me, stop looking at me. Like he seemed like really tough on her, and I thought it might have been some anger. What did you think?
I didn't feel that, honestly. Like, I didn't feel like he saw her as a burden. Like, yeah, he said like bad things to her, like, oh, like you're always like you're killing me, like you're always causing trouble and stuff like that. But then like there were those moments, there was love, like when he saw her like eating the leaf and then like catching the fish and teaching her to catch the fish and stuff like that. Or like, when that in that dinner scene where like, he tells her to like show your muscles and stuff like that. So there was always like that empowerment. Maybe not tender,
Mm,
but like, he was calling her like boss lady and stuff like that. So I don't think he felt like bad taking care of her daughter, to be honest. Just
really,
like how he harmonizes with nature and accepts the consequences of what the nature is giving him, like the storm. I think he also felt the same way about taking care of Hush Puppy.
really.
Yeah.
Okay, so for everybody out there, this is what women want. They want toxic
No,
fathers. Just yell at your
he
kids,
wasn't
yell at your daughters a lot.
he wasn't toxic. It was a tough environment. So like he can't baby her daughter and then like he's dead or storm comes and sweeps him away. So then like what is Hush Puppy supposed to do? Like she
Right,
has
I
to
got you.
be like strong.
I got you. I got you. I'm just saying there weren't those beginning moments of tenderness.
Hmm.
There were just only glimpses of tenderness in certain parts, and then a little bit at the end. I would say.
Yeah.
So that's why it was hard for me to get a read on him because he did like leave her with no reason. And like I'm just saying, maybe this is just my perspective. As if I was a father, I wouldn't act like Wink.
Hmm.
Like disappear with not letting you know where I am. Then I show up in like a hospital gown, and you're like trying to come up to me, and I'm telling you go away. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's just a bit different, maybe, than how I would do it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I'm looking at him that way.
Of course. Like everybody's different, but disappearing out of nowhere, that's real. Like that could happen. I don't know. He could go to fishing and then have a heart attack or something, or like have his, die because of his disease or whatever. And then like he's
Hmm.
gone. And
Right.
she might never like find him again or
Right.
things like
Right.
that. So that's real. So maybe that's
Right.
why he did it like that. I don't know.
Right. All right. So then the end of the world happens. The big storm comes. Boss lady, Quvenzhané, Hush Puppy, Wallis, and her father, Dwight Wink Wallace. I don't know. What was it? Anyway, the little girl and her father wake up. The world has ended. Everything is underwater. And they have to go on a boat to find out what happened to the rest of the city. And as they're on a boat, rolling around, they're hungry. So they start fishing. And you mentioned the scene earlier. He's like, you got to just catch fish. I'm going to teach you how to catch fish. And he literally catches a fish with his hands,
Yeah.
which was wild.
Yeah. I mean,
Because that man's fingertips must have been greasy and dirty. Because why would a fish come out to any random human's hands? He must have had pieces of meat just dangling off the tip of his index
ew,
finger.
ew. Okay. Let's not portray it like that. Yeah, that was kind of like a heartbreaking scene for me because, he saw him like eat a leaf and I guess he felt like I can't like take care of my child. I can't like feed my child because I'm in this situation. So then like he was just like, okay, so I'm gonna teach her to survive then. I'm gonna teach her to hunt and find food because obviously like she doesn't know that and I can't provide her with that, I guess. And that was just like, that was just it felt like a father who can't buy like Christmas presents for their child or something. So it was kind of heartbreaking. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't heartbroken by that. I felt like it was more of an inspirational slash funny scene because Wink as a character has this ability to be scary and mean, but also inspirational at the same
Yeah.
time. So I liked that idea that damn, even if the whole world ends, I'll still be able to survive as a man, says Wink, because I can literally put my hand in the water and come out with food.
Yeah.
Like so that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
You get what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
yeah, of course. In the end, he made it inspirational by like not saying, okay, we're going to Walmart, but he like, he just hunted a fish with his bare hands.
Yeah, yeah. I really thought Wink, at the end, because he makes a lot of mistakes and things that I wouldn't do. Maybe it's better to say things I wouldn't do. Wink did in the movie, but it was good to see a portrayal of a good black father
Yeah.
in their kids' lives in this movie. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I'm not giving that impression that black men are not in their kids' lives because that's not true at all. But that's often not in the movie. We often have single black mothers in movies, or black families, but the father is sort of distant and the mother sort of loves on the kids more.
Yeah.
So it was good to see this in a portrayal in a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So they after they catch the fish and I guess they eat it. They go to downtown Bathtub. They make a right on Lexington Street, go about 4 blocks down Fifth Avenue, and yep, now you're in downtown Bathtub, Louisiana. And when they make it downtown, the neighborhood drunks, this drunk couple, opens the door of their house, and the man walks outside, takes a swig of his beer, and falls into the water. And then, and then Wink and Hush Puppy pull him up into their boat. Then they go into his house, and then they see that about 4 or 5 other people in the town had survived the night with their kids, and they were just in the house.
Yeah. Just
So
like
they have a
getting
big
drunk
happy.
and passing out.
Yeah. So they got drunk during the storm and survived it, which I'm pretty sure is the emergency strategy for about 30% of New Orleanians. So, so yeah, they all meet up, and then they have a big old fish fry because yep, that's what you do in Louisiana. And they admit that there are some people that died in the storm. So they have like a celebration for the people who passed away, and there's going to be no crying, nothing like that. So they boil a lot of fish, crab, crawfish, stuff like that, and the little kids eat under the table while the big parents are eating on top. And I think it was interesting because Hush Puppy was with the
Yeah.
adults and not with the kids under the table. What did you think of that scene when they all met up at the fish fry thing?
Yeah. I'm just gonna reel it back a little bit, but I'm gonna talk about the
Hmm.
fish fry as well. So yeah, like when Hush Puppy and her father is like searching for other families to see if they're alive, they're like, he's yelling their names and stuff like that. The first scene after the storm was like, the silence after the storm because they show like all these houses that are underwater. Like bathtub is like a bathtub now. Like, they're just like a
Hmm.
couple of houses that are floating in the water, basically. Like you can't see the land. And yeah, and they didn't put any music there, and they were just like showing these images and stuff, and I thought that was very powerful. And about like the whole dinner scene, yeah, it
Hmm.
was like uh, it was kind of inspiring, I guess, because
Hmm.
they just went through a whole like huge storm, and their
Hmm.
whole like life flooded. They probably lost
Hmm.
like most of their belongings. They lost family
Hmm.
members, maybe friends and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
now they're just like having a party, basically eating
Yeah.
and having fun, and still like really not giving a fuck, not really caring about what happened. It was like there was no mourning. They just embraced the results. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of inspirational. I don't know. What did you think?
That's a Southern Louisiana tradition. In New Orleans, they have this thing called the second line. When somebody dies, they have people carry their casket, and behind them, the people that are carrying their casket, there's a band playing like music, like happy music, a full band,
Hmm.
brass horns, saxophones, everything. And then people are dancing behind the band as they're marching down the street with his dead body, because that's how they do it in Louisiana. You just celebrate death because we all know we're gonna die.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing about this. Once again, you're living at the edge of the world, at the end of the world, and you just deal with it. And yeah, so that was very, very authentic and real with that. And of course, I think one of the most interesting scenes in the movie happens where Hush Puppy is eating a crab, and one of the older people there, who's not her father, is telling her, "This is how you eat a crab. You flip it over, then you take a knife gently and slice it down the middle." And her father gets so pissed, he says, "God damn it, Hush Puppy! Don't you do that! Don't you do that now!" And I was actually turned. I was like, "Yo, this man is lit right now." I got scared a little bit because I was like, "What is he gonna do? Is he gonna finally snap and just like smack his daughter with a lobster? Like, what is gonna happen?" And do you want to break down that scene? Because I'm still
Wow.
traumatized.
Yeah. So yeah, he basically yells at Hush Puppy and says like, "You can't do that. Don't ever do that. You got to beast it." And then like he takes he takes the crab out of her hand and he just like smashes it in the middle and then drinks the juice, and then like he throws it on he gives her another one, and then he says like, "Beast it. You got to beast it." And other people start cheering. They're like, "Beast
Beast
it,
it,
beast it, beast it."
beast it.
And it's like
I
this.
was like, yo.
Everybody like kind of suddenly becomes like more animalistic, and yeah, and then Hush Puppy like breaks it and he eats it and drinks the juice, whatever. And then yeah, his father tells her like, "Now show me your guns," or something like that. Like, and then she like climbs on the table and shows her guns, her arms, and she's like strong. So yeah,
Mhm.
and she's like proud of herself, and her father is yelling like, "Yeah, this is how we do it. This is what our family is all about," and all of that.
Yeah, the Doucets. I think that's his name. The Doucets. That's his family
Oh
name.
yeah, okay. I thought it was Willis.
No,
Oh,
no. Throughout the movie, he says that's how the Doucets do
oh,
it,
Doucette's.
meaning his
Okay.
family. Yeah. So yeah, that was. I feel like when he was yelling at her, it was just so savage. It was just absolutely insane. That showed me that Wink was on. He was on. He was on one. He was on 10. He was on 100. The man would not give up, and he was yelling beasted at her. I thought she wasn't gonna break the crab. I thought she was gonna be like, I can't do it. And he was gonna like jump over the table and just handle business. I was like, but when she broke it, I was like, oh, thank God, I'm relieved because I can't live through seeing a child get beat for like 15 minutes now.
Yeah, no, no, yeah. It was all part of like again teaching her that toughness, you know.
Yeah, it was like a rite of
And
passage because
yeah.
I feel like that at that moment, Hush Puppy became a man.
Mhm.
The little girl became a full man in this
Yeah,
world,
yeah.
and after that, she bosses up.
Yeah. And also I guess it was sort of like the rejection of the modern world maybe, or not modern, but I don't know, you know, like maybe because most of the movie we see them eating food with just their hands. And
Hmm.
so yeah, like so maybe for also like for Wink, like using a
Hmm.
knife to cut the crab was just like, what are you, like, are you a queen or something like in the palace?
Hmm.
Like stop doing
Hmm.
that nonsense, because why do that when you can just like eat it with your hand and it tastes better.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it definitely was like rejecting society, civilization, what we consider the norms, and them being like, we are a tribal people. We are, more natural people. We're people we're salt of the earth people. We do
Yeah.
things, the way it really should be done through brute strength and force and, man conquering nature. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. That's real. So yeah, basically at the dinner scene, the Creole lady Marmalade, Beyonce's great 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 grandmother says to Wink, the storm is going to make everything die. just because the water gonna go down doesn't mean everything's okay, because there's a lot of salt in the water, baby, that came from the ocean. And Wink tells her, "Shut up, bitch,"
Wow.
because Wink got no manners. And yeah, basically, Wink and another man, an older white man in the town, go out in the boat fishing with Hush Puppy, and they don't catch nothing but like dead rats and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and everything is dying around them.
Yeah.
And
I mean, at first they kind of show a little bit like how they're making survival, because they're in this, like, all of the people who survived are in this shack, and they kind of start making that place like home. Like, they built up, I don't know, they put like, I don't know, like spikes on the roof. I don't know, what was
yeah,
that
that was
for?
to prevent birds
Oh,
from.
okay. So yeah, they put spikes on the roof. They have like little plants that they grow, like pepper or something like that, some vegetables. They're keeping their
Mhm.
animals there. And Hush Puppy is saying, like, on the back, like, we have enough food for us until the water goes down and stuff like that. So again, we see like that community survival, I guess, there, and not like
Mhm.
individual survival, but yeah, everybody's just like putting in on something and doing something for just like surviving overall. And
Yeah.
then we kind of see like that's not really enough, because the salt is
Mm.
killing everything.
Right. I feel like this movie was like somebody trying to demonstrate a thought experiment about what if we all lived like poor Louisianians. How would it go?
Well, what do you think about
somebody
that?
was, and somebody was just like wrote the whole movie script about that. How do I think about that, or what do I think about
Yeah.
that? I think Louisiana, Southern Louisiana, has a very unique culture. Recently I went and did that commercial with the company that does like advertising freelance, and the actress that I shot with was French. And when I told her I was from Louisiana, she said, "Oh, you have to speak French too." And like that's how famous and everybody knows about. Like there's a different culture in like Southern Louisiana, and people know this. And we have famous cities like New Orleans, and some say Baton Rouge and Lafayette and stuff like that, and just a different culture. So I do think there is a lot that should be preserved about Southern Louisiana. But I kind of fight against the idea that the movie tells us that we can sort of combat nature and live in this place that's not meant for people. I kind of disagree with that, because I feel like the choice to live in a place that's hostile so much to human existence is a bit dumb, in my opinion.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And we need to be focusing on how do we keep our environment healthy. Like what can we do to stop climate change and stuff like that, rather than just say we're going to fight it and embrace it and look the animal dead in its snout and tell them that we're friends, kind of. No, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
You get what I'm
I
saying?
mean, you're like, let's take action rather than just like sitting there and accepting our fate.
Yeah, yeah. Because Southern Louisiana is a very special place, right?
Yeah.
But choosing to live there now just to be obstinate, just to not deal with the changing times, I feel like is a bit crazy, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah,
understand, because everybody is different. Me and you,
yeah,
we left like our countries and like where we were from. We kind of like left our homes, and then we kind of like went on this journey because we have, I don't know, different views, different aspirations, and different things that makes us happy. And not everybody wants to stay at home. Not everybody is like, I don't want to change. And but there are people who are like that. And I guess also like what this movie was trying to show, that if you are like one of those people, like that's okay too. And you are happy too, a little bit. Like it wasn't like glorifying poverty. Like everything that they went through was really harsh and rough. But at the same time, maybe it was also like saying, hey, like these people have a place in the world too, and we shouldn't just, maybe, I don't know.
right. Keep it real. Would you live in the bathtub?
No,
No.
no, I wouldn't.
Why not?
I don't, because that's not my home. But
No, but if you could, like, I don't know, what if you could choose to live there?
no, I wouldn't. If I can leave that sort of poverty, I would, honestly.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not someone who wants to live in a palace or anything, or have crazy dreams about being rich. But yeah, like I would want to be able to get like healthcare and proper education and all that,
Right.
and
Okay.
also
All
like
right.
normal food, like normal as in like not cat food and stuff.
Right. Right. All right.
I don't know.
So
Would you
yeah.
live in bathtub?
No, I already
Oh,
answered that.
okay,
No.
okay,
You asked me that already. That's why I asked you.
okay.
But all right, moving on. So after well, this is the thing. Wink is telling everybody we ain't leaving the bathtub. We ain't gonna leave. We're gonna stay right here. And then they go fishing, and they're pulling out only dead rats. And while Wink has his head in the water, Hush Puppy tells the other man, do you want to leave the bathtub? And the other man says, no, not really. And then Wink comes up and says, I heard that. And I thought, oh God, he's about to take off his belt. He's about to start kicking ass, taking names. But yeah, so everybody in the community is sort of solidified around the bathtub, and Hush Puppy is a little bit like, I don't know, a little bit at that point.
Yeah,
And so, later on that night, they go to sleep, and Wink wakes up, and her father is like, "Now you stay here now, and because we are gonna make everything better, we're gonna make everything right for the bathtub. And if I don't come back, then that white man's your new daddy." I was like, "Oh wow, okay, this is a very tight knit community, very tight knit." uh, so
Walrus.
they go.
That was his name.
Yeah, Walrus. Yeah, Walrus, the old white man. And so Wink and I believe two other guys that live in the community go out on a boat to the levee And then Creole Lady Marmalade wakes up and says, "Oh no, them boys gonna destroy the whole thing. They're gonna do something so bad." And then she hops off in her speedboat to go chase after them. And what we find out is that Wink and his two other buddies are about to commit an act of domestic terrorism. They're about to blow up the levee to flood the rest of the city, so that way the water can leave the bathtub. And what did you think of that?
Yeah, I didn't. First of all, first I didn't understand it because I don't have like I never seen a levee before, um, like in a community. So yeah, I first of all I'm like, why are they blowing up like this in the middle of the sea? Like, why are they blowing up the sea? But then I kind of realized it later when the water went down and they showed that. So yeah, but yeah, that was like I don't know, because Wink is so like passionate about his bathtub and his community and all of that. He was like, okay, well, if I have to like go all the way to survive and keep my people there and also like keep my daughter there, because he obviously wanted his daughter to just like stay there and live like how he lived. So he was like, I'm gonna commit a crime. Like I don't care. Like if I have to do this to save myself and my community and my kid, like I'm doing this. So like yeah, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I thought seeing a black man blow up the levees in Louisiana to flood the rich part of town, or to flood the part of town that tried to keep them out or something, was highly symbolic. I mean, I don't think I can downplay that enough, because, like I said at the beginning, there was a time in Louisiana. Some say during Katrina that happened too.
Mm,
That the white folks blew up the levees on the black side of town to flood them back in 2005 when Katrina hit, and that definitely happened about 100 years before in like the 20th century, where thousands of black people were made refugees because the white folks flooded their part of town too.
mm,
And so to see a black see that on screen is similar to like Django killing like the slave master, blowing up the levee.
mm,
So that was a very dope scene.
mm.
The lady almost stops. Actually, technically, the Creole Lady Marmalade almost stops the bomb from going off, but actually not Wink, Hush Puppy pulls the button at the end and causes the levee to blow up. So that was actually cool to see that all play out.
Yeah.
And so when the levee blows up, the police come with helicopters and like their cars and stuff and say everybody's got to leave. This is an evacuation zone. And Wink and Hush Puppy try to hide, but eventually the police come and take them to like this FEMA camp, this refugee center. And it's a big contrast from like the gritty, grungy, natural world that they were living in, and now they're in this like sterilized community center with like fluorescent lights, and everything is like tile white and
Mhm.
very bright. What did you think when they made it to that place?
Yeah, like I think the director, like or whoever shot the scene, made it like super, clear that there was like that contrast, and not
Mhm.
necessarily like bad. Like you don't feel like oh, like they're back in civilization. It's like bad. It's fake. Like you don't feel that, but you definitely feel like it's very different from what they are in. And also like
Mhm.
the Hush Puppy says like it doesn't look like a prison, but it looks like they look like fish with no water or something like that.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
yeah, I kind of felt like maybe like her father told her something about like this land that was
Mhm.
across the levee, and maybe he told her like it's the prison there, because that's
Mhm.
how he sees those people, and
Mhm.
yeah, and but she was like, okay, so it's not as bad as my dad is telling me, but it's still not like what I want in a home,
Mhm.
I guess. Like there's like no water here, and maybe
Yeah,
that's like what makes me me, or what makes bathtub good, even though water is
right.
destructive. It's still like something feels missing without it or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, comparing those people to fish without water is a very, how can I say, hush puppy way of looking at the world. Because her idea of living in nature is like humans living in nature the way we did in the bathtub is as natural as a fish in water. But these people live like fish out of water, meaning they are just like us, but they are living in an unnatural way.
Hmm.
That's sort of like how I took that comparison she made with that sentence.
Hmm.
So basically, her father gets a blood test done, and the doctor comes up to her and says, you really need to have a surgery or a procedure done because something's really bad. And he's like, don't tell me that, man. I don't care, man. I want to get out of here. I don't need no surgery. And then he like attacks the doctor, and this is all before he like tells her, don't eat the food now, and which I think actually is kind of like a good suggestion because whatever they were eating in the bathtub looked delicious. I want to eat everything there. It was probably
Yeah,
10
because they
times
were
healthier
eating
than the
like
bathtub.
shrimp and crab, which is sort of like fancy food today. I don't know. At least
Yeah,
in
mine
Turkey,
is.
like eating crab is like very very expensive and it's very rare. And eating
Yeah,
like just like
lobster crab.
lobster crab and all of those things are like very expensive.
Yeah, minus the cat food scene, everything they ate in the bathtub looked way better than what they were eating in the FEMA center when they were evacuated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Wink is fighting with the doctor, and that's one of those scenes when you're like, bro, don't do that. And it's he eventually gets like hospitalized, pinned down into like a bed and stuff like that, and he's sedated and eventually subdued. And Hush Puppy is put into like a daycare center where she doesn't really fit in with the other kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and then anyway, Wink eventually wants to break out. So he breaks out of the hospital with Hush Puppy and like four other girls from the community, along with like the other people in the center. They're trying to get out too. And then Hush Puppy is put onto the bus, but then Wink doesn't get on. He tries to send her away, but she's like, "You tried to send me away. Why'd you do that? What'd you think of that
Yeah,
scene?"
I
When
mean, when Hush Puppy was in the bus and she attacked the bus driver, which caused the bus driver to stop the bus, and then she gets out. I was like, that okay, that's her like father's daughter, because yeah, like she got what she wanted because she didn't want to leave her father, just like any other person in bathtub that sort of like embraces this idea of destruction and death. Like Hush Puppy was like that, and she was like aware of it, and yeah, like I think like in a couple of scenes ago, she tells his father like, "Don't you think I know like you're dying or something like that, like you're sick or something like that." So we know that she's aware, and she's like, I know like something bad is happening, but I don't want to like let go. Like I endured the storm with you. I endured like all this stuff, animals dying and all of that with you. So like just let me be with you while also you are dying, because that's just the part of life. I think that's how she felt.
right, but I'm gonna just say this: I think that even Wink knew that the bathtub is a lost cause.
Mm-hmm.
And Wink knew that it would be better for his daughter to go anywhere else than back to the bathtub because he even knew it was over. He just had to return there because he's about to die. There's nothing else he can do with his life. So he might as well be in his homeland and not be a coward because he says a man doesn't leave his homeland. He's brave and stays there and fight. But, when he says that, he's thinking about a man. I don't think he was thinking about
Yeah.
his little girl. As much as he tried to make her a man, she's not a man. And she has much more opportunity in the outside world. And I think that's why Wink would agree with me that the idea of living in the bathtub is not the best idea. It's meant for a select few. It's only meant for people who really want it, people who are really about it. And that's what I would say. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. And also, I think there was, I don't think it was just only like just him thinking like a man, but also like, as a father, he always kind of raised his daughter to be a survivor, right? And like, no matter how bad she feels, if she's crying, like he's always like, toughen up, like, no, no crying, no being scared in this house. But
Mm-hmm.
his own death, when it comes to his own death, he feels like maybe he can't help but be sad, or he can't help her, not cry or anything like that. So he just wanted to escape that. I don't know, like just take her pain away or something like
Right.
that.
Right. And I think also that scene was important when Hush Puppy came back to her father, because before that, we saw a scene where the animals were running across the earth, the giant monsters that were frozen in ice. Now they're traveling towards wherever they're going to, possibly to the bathtub. And when one of the older animals dies, all the other giant pigs like eat him and stuff like that. And I think Hush Puppy is narrating during that scene that there are some animals that eat the weak because in this world, you got to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
But in this scene, she shows the difference between humans and nature, or humans and beasts. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like, I'm not going to abandon my father. I'm not going to, kill my father. I'm going to be there for him, and I'm going to make sure that he's okay. So I think often in movies where we have this conflict between man and nature, there's that scene that highlights the difference between nature and us. And that's all.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So anyway, they all escape and go back to the bathtub, I think on like a boat or something like that. And yeah, what happens next? The little girls
Yeah, they
go
they
to the
laid the
beach.
father down, and he's sick. He's about to die and stuff. And Hush Puppy, along with like other orphans, I guess, because we don't really see their mothers around, because there's
Mm-hmm.
only the teacher and the two like white old couple.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like they are like just running to the sea, and then we see them just like trying to swim and get to somewhere, because Hush Puppy like sees this light somewhere out in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're trying to like swim there, and they bump into this, I don't know what it is that like a boat or something?
Yeah, I think it's like a lighthouse boat or something
Yeah,
like that.
they run into that lighthouse boat, and there's like this man, I guess that is like the person who is responsible for the lighthouse. And yeah, they get on his boat, and they're like, where, and Hush Puppy is like talking to the captain. And yeah, she's talking like a grown person, and she's saying like, where's this boat going, like is this gonna take us where we're going? And the man is like, yeah, like this,
It'll take you where you need to be.
yeah,
And every time I eat a chicken sandwich, I throw the wrappers on the floor because it keeps me grounded. Can you please mute?
sorry.
anyway, anyway, while that's the part of the movie that lost me. That's where I thought, okay, where is this movie going? And honestly, I really didn't like that transition because it didn't make any sense. So they were with their Hush Puppy was with her father. The whole community rallies around him. Then they escape the place. But then where does her father go? Where do the rest of them go? Why aren't they all together? The little girls go to the beach. They swim out in the water, land on some random man's boat who's eating chicken sandwiches, throwing the wrappers away, and then they end up at a strip club on the water. And he decides to take them in there for some reason. And I was like, what is happening in this movie? I really was not feeling that transition and like that whole part because it was very, very strange. What did you think of it?
I mean, I kind of made sense of it like towards the end of the movie, but now that I think about it, I think like at that time, Hush Puppy knows his father is going to die, so she was like, okay, I need to like do something. And whenever in the movie, Hush Puppy is like crying for help or doesn't know how to like find a solution, she yells for her mom, like she
And
goes
runs
on top
away.
of the, I don't know, house and says mama and stuff like that. So yeah, and she says like, I think I broke something and stuff like that. So whenever she needs help, she's searching for her mom. So I think that's when she was like, again, in need of help because she was like just stuck with her father dying. So she was like, okay, I have to find mom and she will make it like better or something.
Hmm.
So, and I think that man who was like the captain of the lighthouse boat was a person who was stuck between somewhere like where the normal modern world is and then where bathtub is, because
Hmm.
he was like, this nomad sort of guy living in the middle of the sea, kind of
Hmm.
like bathtub, but then he's like eating chicken biscuits, and he
Hmm.
has like, he's buying them from KFC or something.
Right.
So I thought he was like some character stuck in the middle of like both worlds.
Yeah, I can't even try to contextualize it, metaphorize it, really think deep into it because it just seems a bit strange. It seems a bit strange. Maybe they're trying to make some comparison to like I don't know some of those ancient myths, like where the hero has to go to Hades to retrieve somebody from the dead, or the hero has to go to the darkest parts of the world or the edge of the world before they come back a hero. I don't know, but they end up going to this strip club that's on the water. But the people there are the women there are not really strippers. They're all like semi middle aged women wearing like nightgowns, and there's like old people singing like blues music gently in the crowd while people are like drinking whiskey or whatever. And then Hush Puppy is walking through the crowd because of course children walking in a gentleman's club is a-okay. And she sees this woman come out the back drinking a beer, and we get the impression that it's Wink's mother because she sort of kind of has the same build and hair as the woman earlier in the movie who shot an alligator with a shotgun and had like blood on her panties and stuff like that. So we get the impression that's her, and we sort of are confirmed by that because her voice is the same when she says, "What you want, baby?" And I'm like, "What?" Okay. And she says, "Come on, I'm gonna show you a magic trick." What did you think of Hush Puppy reuniting with her mother in that scene?
Yeah, I don't think like we know that's her mother.
Hmm.
I don't know if we know that. I mean, I don't know if the images that we saw of her, like Hush Puppy dreaming about her mother, if those are real images or if that's like how she always thought what her mother would look like. And then when maybe like she sees some woman who is kind of like similar to her dream, then she's like, okay, like this is my mother. But the movie's also kind of hinting it because this lady is a waitress there, and she takes her to the kitchen and she cooks gator, like she
Hmm.
fries it like like how Hush Puppy's father told her. So the movie also kind of confirms that like maybe this woman can be her mother,
Hmm.
but we don't like 100% know
Hmm.
because I'm guessing like gator is like a popular food in around there, as
Hmm.
far as I know, like from you and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, but I don't know. It was like very sweet,
Hmm.
very innocent, and I think I don't know like. I think, like I said, I think she went on that journey to find a conclusion and help, and I guess she got some sort of like answer, like I can't really fight this. And thinking of like her mother's position, she's kind of living in the modern world, but not really.
Hmm.
So maybe she felt like, okay, like I need to bring something from the past or from the middle to make this happen. I don't know.
Right. I'm sure what the woman said was very important. It's just not coming to mind right now. I don't remember. But I feel like the general feeling of that scene was just of tenderness and showing Hush Puppy some love and like everything's going to be okay. Because during most of the movie, she got that rough love from her father, but never a hug, never sort of like that gentle kiss or those affirmations that you need, I guess. And so that scene was important just for giving her that to let her know that she's now complete and she is validated and loved. And she took some of the gator with her because I guess it was that good, and brought it back to the community where the rest of the people were in the town and saw that and she's running with the kids to the rest of the people in bathtub, and the animals have finally caught up with them. And so the little girls that she's walking with start running away from the animals screaming, but Hush Puppy is like walking resolutely away from them, and they're marching towards her. And then when she turns around and faces the pigs, they stop and look at her, and she says, "I'm not afraid of you," or something like that. Or she says, "I'm your friend, kind of," or "You're my friend's kind of." What did you think of that scene?
I think she says something like I know you're here because the time has come or something like that, but
Hmm.
I need to help someone first.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's because the wild animals, the boars, kind of symbolize that wildness of nature, I guess.
Hmm.
But they also symbolize Hush Puppy a little bit. But maybe it was like you know I know like it's coming, but I need some time to like just how can I say this, make amends or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So maybe like it was hinting for something that we can do about climate change.
Hmm. Hmm.
Something we can at least like slow it down or maybe
Right.
even stop it,
Right.
or
Right.
maybe not stop it because they still existed, like they didn't die. And it was also like telling them that they are her friends, saying it was kind of saying like wild nature is my friend, and I know I
Hmm.
cannot control it, but sometimes I can use it to my advantage or something. I don't know.
Right. Possibly. Like the time has come or death has come or nature will come eventually. And so her not running from it and telling nature, like, just give me some time, give me a moment, because before you take all of us, let me feed my father some magical gator from this other Creole lady. Because magic gator is the cure for everything. Because I do remember the woman saying, the magic's gator, baby. I'm like, okay.
Okay,
And
now I
so
have to eat gator meat because I'm curious now.
tastes like chicken. Tastes like chicken.
Yeah, but I do have to try that fried gator.
My theory is that the wild boars at the end were actually like the police or some other people that were coming to capture them. And when she turns around and faces them, they like talk to her and they see that she's not afraid, she's not scared, and they give her some grace. But eventually they're gonna like take them away or something like that. But either way, when she faces the animals, they take the knee, they bow down to Hush Puppy, and then when she tells them what she tells them, they turn around and walk away. And then she goes inside and feeds her father the gator, and then they cry. And I think that's the end of the movie, right?
Yeah. And I
So
mean, yeah, in the end, like there's this one point in the movie where Hush Puppy says like, my father said ever like if he ever dies that I have to like set him on fire and then like send him to the sea.
mhm,
So we see like the scene where Hush Puppy is sending like burning his father and then like sending it off to the sea. And then like the other people in the community are singing like a funeral song, I guess, like a
mhm,
chant, something like that.
mhm.
And yeah, that's the end.
That's the end. That's the end. So overall, now that I think about the scene where they went and traveled to the stripper show or something like that, I just wish there was more continuity in the story there.
Mhm.
I did enjoy the acting. I feel like Wink was the best actor, but Hush Puppy did a great job too. It didn't feel like a low budget movie for me. I know it's
Mhm.
probably an independent movie, but it didn't feel like that. Everything felt very professional, very clean, and great story about environmental racism, testing the ideas of anarcho primitivism, stuff like that. And really just an overall thought provoking movie in Louisiana, which is very rare. I didn't like the Roger Ebert review that was done on this movie because I believe they gave this movie like 4 stars. And the way that I read the review, it was sort of like romanticizing the poverty that is in Louisiana, or sort of like romanticizing this place as if it's totally fiction. But Bathtub is like a very real place. And one thing that I really dislike is like when people look at art like this and because they're so distant from it, they say, wow, what a magical place. What an interesting story. What a fantastic, whimsical world that was created on screen. And I'm like, don't you know, like the two main actors really come from Southern Louisiana. Like literally what happened in Bathtub could happen to their hometowns. And, you know, this is something that millions of people on the southern coast of the United States are living with and dealing with. And I hate when people just write stories. Yeah, the movie is good, but I hate when they write the reviews in a way that make it seem like this is Lord of the Rings, as if this is not, you know, I don't know, a real movie. This movie is
Yeah.
as real as any World War II movie or anything like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's nothing like nice about living in poverty, and yeah, like the ideal thing would be like all of us living in equal conditions. But there's something to be learned from, but it shouldn't be like yeah, like glorified,
Mhm.
like you said.
Yeah. I'm going to give the movie a solid 8.
Hmm.
Solid 8. I gave it like an 8.5 earlier, but I'm just bringing it down just because of that part that made it feel like it was a bit disjointed.
Okay, okay.
What about you?
Mm, yeah, I think I'm giving it an 8 too. Actually, like 8.5. I'll give it 8.5.
Yeah.
Initially, I gave 8, but now mine is increasing and yours is decreasing. But
Okay.
uh, yeah, I think there are like lots of interesting things that you can discuss, like the
Hmm.
force of wild nature, how
Hmm.
man adapts to it or takes over it, and what
Hmm.
that causes, what that brings. And like you
Hmm.
said, like environmental, I guess like classism, we can also say
Yeah.
adding to racism as well, like the
Hmm.
class and how different classes are going to be affected by like climate change
Yeah.
because the first ones to go will be like impoverished people.
Definitely.
So yeah,
Definitely. Well, great choice, acting, good movie selection, awesome. And looking forward to doing more reviews with you. And shout out to everybody sending recommendations and stuff like that. We will be covering as many of the recommendations as possible. Stay tuned to this channel. Follow me on Twitter. You can also catch these episodes on Spotify. Go check out our travel content, Backpack Bandits. Support us. Keep on liking, subscribing, sharing, and peace.